I'll tell you why you need to trust the process with Trevor Lawrence and how the defense actually had a very good day here at training camp. I'll do it today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is absolutely your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that covers the Jacksonville Jaguars each and every day and brings you an episode of the latest news and events, especially now that we are in training camp. Shout out to the everydayers that joined us today. Saw a couple of them at practice today. I appreciate you guys for coming up to me, telling me you're everydayers. And if you're new here, thank you for joining us. Hopefully I'll give you a reason to come back. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Also, make sure you tap in wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen. We will be there each and every day bringing you the coverage. All right, let's get to it. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to end the show talking about trusting Trevor Lawrence because he trusts his teammates. That requires a little bit of something. I'll tell you exactly what that is. Gaining more by doing less. I'll explain that as we get to the middle because I'm going to tell you how doing less but getting more is where we want to be. And what do I mean by doing less? I'll go through it. All right, here we go. Trevor Lawrence got drafted, and I always make this joke. I think it was my man Cap said, give him the ball and get out of the way, right? And I was like, y'all can't do that. But it seems as much as Cap was being tongue-in-cheek, when you look at it, that's almost like it looks like what Doug Peterson and the crew did and Press Taylor and all of them. And I'm not going to sit here and say that's what they did. I'm not. But I will tell you this. Going into his fifth year, there's a lot of things that Trevor is having to learn and do under the guidance and the tutelage of Liam Cohen and Coach Yudinsky, right? Why do I feel that way? I feel that way because every time you hear them talk, what you hear them saying is stuff like, we're working with his feet. We're trying to keep his feet and his head, using his eyes to manipulate, pointing his feet towards the target. And you sit here and think like, man, how are they now just doing that? And why are they now doing that? Grant Yudinsky. Why are they now just doing that with a dude in his fifth year? The dude that has been like the number one prospect since he was 14 years old. He went through all of high school, all of college, and the first 4 years of his career, 3 of them were with the Super Bowl winning quarterback, head coach, who's a former NFL quarterback. Why are they breaking this thing down to the studs the way that they are and trying to rebuild Trevor? Well, Liam Cohen won't say it, so I will. He's just fundamentally been doing a lot of things wrong, and it looks like he hasn't been coached. I'm not telling you that's the way the Jaguars feel. I'm telling you that I use deductive reasoning to say they are going through this, breaking things down to the studs and building it back up because it appears that Trevor had gotten into a bunch of bad habits. But those habits were him trying to make plays. Those habits were him using his talent and his talent alone to try to will this team to victory. And sometimes that means when you do that, you're not just doing your job. You're trying to do your job and you basically got a whole bunch of training wheels and kickstands on everything around you, including your offensive line. And I'm not trying to trash Trevor's former teammates or the ones that are still there who have been here for a while. But what I will tell you is this. When a coach says that they are going to provide answers pre-snap, somebody might use that as saying, well, you got a quarterback that you need to help provide answers for. You got a quarterback that you have to give cliff notes. You have a quarterback that you have to give a little bit of a curve. You have a quarterback that you kind of got to explain a little bit more to him. And traditionally in the past, sometimes people have done that with quarterbacks who are more athletic or who run a lot. And you don't usually hear it about people like Trevor Lawrence, right? Well, I'm here to tell you something. That is a bad perspective to see things if you think that's what they're doing. What they're actually doing is the same thing that has been done for guys like Matthew Stafford, It's the same things that have been done, if you want to go back and really date it, for guys like Troy Aikman. It's the same thing that has been done for guys like Peyton Manning. It is the exact same thing that has been done for guys like Tom Brady. You're giving them structure. You're giving them a muscle memory baseline that will not affect them as players, and it won't block them from letting the tremendous talent be the thing that wins. You're just giving them a canvas and a runway for that talent to be displayed, and you got to know when to say when. Sometimes you got to just take the easy stuff, and sometimes in the process of trying to do things the way that is the most direct way, you're going to get resistance from really, really good teams, but you still have a baseline to do things. So what that creates is a standard. And what that standard creates is consistency. And you're doing things the same way all the time. And then you'll know when that talent has to kick in and take over, right? So doing less of the individual things, but getting more. And this is how we're going to tie this into trusting your teammates. We're going to tie this into trusting your system. The difference between really, really good players that advance in the playoffs and ones that don't, the thing that they're trying to teach them is the thing that is the difference. That's the difference in being down 28-3 and then coming back and winning the game, because you trust the process. You trust your ability within that process. And I think when they break it down to the studs, what they're doing is they're telling him you don't have to be Superman every single play. There's a time and a place once or twice a game where Superman shows up. But for the most part, what we need you to do is trust the system. And we're going to give you a system to trust. We're going to give you something that you can lean on each and every day. You see, why this is important is this is how you go from a team that says we worked on it all week, but for some reason when we get into the game, we just don't do it. You remember that? You've heard that for like 2 years in a row in the past. Remember when I don't know why we can't get it done. We do it and we go over it in practice. It seems like when the game starts, and then the high throws early. We saw a little bit of that today in camp too. The defense did a good job. We'll give you that news and notes at the very end. But you see, that's why it looks like everyone doesn't know what they're doing, because there was just the dependency was on, and I use a basketball analogy, the dependency was on just go out there and cook somebody for 30 and everything will fall in place. The dependency was on just a playmakers team. I hear that at Florida State, and they went 2-10. This is a system designed for playmakers. Yeah, so we're going to make all of these individual one-on-one plays and then try to tie them all together, and we're supposed to be winning the game at the end. It doesn't work like that. So I like what they're doing. And we talk about doing less and getting more. Now I'm talking about gaining more by doing less. Those are two different things. One thing is how you prepare, doing less to get more. The next thing is how do you actually transfer that from the practice field to game day? Gaining more by doing less. In this case, it's probably less work on the field and more work in the classroom and in your brain. And this is where I think the Jaguars are a lot different, not only personnel-wise, but in their approach. I told Tom McManus, former Jaguar, today, I said, they look like a team that's more brainy. They're thinking a lot more. They understand the process. They understand what they look. Tom was like, look, yeah, you can understand it, but you still got to do it. And we had a nice little spirited conversation. But I'll tell you in the second segment why gaining more by doing less of the physical and more of the mental aspect in terms of preparations, I believe will help this team tremendously. And we'll get to it here in a second on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, and even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes all of that possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seats, and a lower price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On Major League Baseball, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming baseball game. Tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal? Game Time's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, and it's guaranteed. Running along here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. Talk about doing less and getting more. Now we're going to talk about gaining more by doing less. Less of what? They're going to work hard. They're going to be in the building. Camp is not easy. Camp was rough today, and it was very, very intense, right? And you saw guys actually struggling. Brian Thomas Jr. had a rough day. The offense overall had a rough day. The defense had a very good day today, right? And you say, well, it's just got on helmets. Wig ain't no big deal. Well, training camp sometimes can give you some surprises, and we got some today. Guys looked like they were frustrated. BT even got banged up a little bit, but he was able to get up. Liam Cohen said he's fine. There's nothing there to worry about. You had a false start penalty early from Anton Harrison, who was lined up at left tackle when that happened. And so, no, I think he was at right tackle. I think that was Wyatt Milam that I saw at left guard, but they both got penalties. Yeah, so the offense struggled a little bit today. But you can see them pressing towards a lot of things that they are learning in the film in the classroom, and they're trying to apply it. Like Travis Hunter did a lot of switching today. He played mostly defense, but he had some mental reps on offense, and that's a reverse because he was playing offense before, and he was getting mental reps. And that's where I want to pause for a minute, because Ron Miles talked about it during our sit down. He talked about mental reps when I asked him about Travis splitting reps and, trying to combine that with the fact that we were always told that those reps matter. He said those reps do matter, but some of them have to be mental. And that's a key here. They believe in teaching. They believe in the mindset part of the game, in the approach part of the game. They believe in instilling and having a system that you fall back on despite having a whole bunch of talent, if that's where they think they are. I'll give you an example. The Bulls and the Lakers under Phil Jackson. You're going to run that triangle whether you want to run that triangle or not. I don't care if you got Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, the great Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, whoever. I don't care who you have, Pau Gasol, you're running the triangle. And we're going to use this offense as a baseline for you to let your talent rip. So the Jaguars are more focused now on their system, their structure, their understanding of what they're supposed to be doing, the answers that they get pre-snap. I feel like they're spending a lot more time working on stuff in the classroom than they are at training camp. Now, when you come out to training camp, you see them working just like you saw teams work in the past. You see the intensity. You saw that probably more today on day 3 than you did the first 2 days. All right. Day off tomorrow, but they'll be back at it on Sunday. But the thing is I can almost see them coming out and trying to do what they have been watching on tape, as opposed to in the past, and this may or may not be true, it felt like they were working on things first, and then you always used to hear the coaches go, the eye in the sky, tell us the truth. We'll go back and look at the tape, and then we'll see what you see the correction on the field now. You've already looked at the tape. Now you have to do it out here. The mental reps are important, but when we get out here on the physical side of it, we have to do what we saw on tape, as opposed to correcting what we did on the field and hoping that correction translates to us being able to do it on the field, like studying the tape after practice. I still think they're going to watch tape, but I think they're going to watch tape to see if the guys are doing what they talked about based on their performance on the practice field. So you can gain more and be smart. If you look at college, Nick Saban always had a bunch of talent at Alabama, but don't you feel like when you watch them play that they had it here? Remember the great LSU team? The great LSU team with Joe Burrow in 2019 with all of those guys. I remember their defense, and I watched Christian Fulton and those guys and Grant Delpit, how they were talking to each other, and they were pointing and putting each other in right positions. I can go back all the way to the Tampa defense with Derek Brooks. And I remember the mic was on too loud from the sideline. And I heard Brooks yelling at Shelton Quarles, Shelton, pointing at him, telling him to move to a spot. And that's the exact spot he needed to be in because the running back ran that way and they high-fived each other. You remember when the Kobe Dean, when he was in college at Georgia, got all over his linebacker on a play that wasn't successful, but it was almost successful by Alabama in the national championship game. And then the very next play, that linebacker made a play, and the Kobe Dean, who had just jumped on him, went over there and congratulated him. This is the type of teaching and communication that I see happening with this team. It's because they are going to mentally and they're going to just mentally know and psychologically know exactly what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to be. 2 days ago, the defensive backs struggled, Tyson Campbell included. Tyson Campbell had a brilliant day today in practice. You saw them get better in 48 hours and start doing things and having more confidence in what they were doing as the intensity ratcheted up. And I think this is the part where we're all going to be happy. The competition level, the coaching, the teaching, not just physical, but the mental aspects of it. Those are the things that you can control. You know how good you are physically, but what's going to be the advantage and what's going to be the thing that makes this thing operate like a computer program is how smart they are. Gone are the days of us hearing coaches say we're going to throw something against the wall and see what sticks. And that's the thing that I really want to harp on here as to why I am optimistic about the change. Now, it still has to manifest itself. And I know there are a lot of people too that, like, for some reason, this training camp doesn't seem like it's been as crowded with the fans as we have in the past. And I think that's because everybody was like, look, man, I just want to get to it and I want to see it change. I want to see it look different. And I think it will. But the fans are really about show me. And this team right now is really about, they're really learning the nuances and the little idiosyncrasies, I guess that's what you want to call them, the little things that's going to make them a team that appears as if they have been playing together for 15 years. That's how you have to do it. You got to go out. You got to have the repetitions, but you also have to mentally know and understand what your purpose is. And that's what I think is going on. It's all about Trevor Lawrence. It's all about trusting the process. That process is what we're talking about today. Trevor also can trust his teammates more. That's the other thing. The other part of this is the talent that is around Trevor Lawrence will hopefully make him believe that he doesn't have to be Superman and do everything every single play. And that's what we'll discuss here in segment 3 on Locked On Jaguars. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat. Get your draft board ready and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all of the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, me and my friends are playing on Yahoo Fantasy for the 15th straight year, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. I'm telling you, man, I have so much fun with Yahoo Fantasy because it's easy to navigate through the site. And they won't let you do things you're not supposed to do to keep you on point that way, keep you from arguing with your friends all the time. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating and joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL, and let's make fantasy season the best one yet. All right, third final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. Always thankful for you being our first listener. We do not take for granted the fact that you guys trust us to give you, and trust me to give you, the news from training camp and to keep up with us. We do appreciate that interaction. We do not take that for granted. I know your time is extremely valuable, and I'm glad that you spend it here with me and us here on Locked On Jaguars and the Locked On Podcast Network. Why is trusting Trevor a big deal? You have to trust your quarterback, but you trust him when you know he's prepared. But you need him to trust his teammates. And when he knows those teammates are prepared and those teammates are good, it makes it very easy for him to do his job and not worry about somebody else's. I think a lot of the things that Trevor did in the past, he did because he felt like the offensive line wasn't going to protect him. And not sitting there pointing the finger, never throwing him under the bus, but hey, we got to do whatever we got to do. Some of the things are on him. Technique, feet being pointed towards the target. I used to hear that back in the day when Trent Dilfer used to talk about Derek Carr when he was at Fresno State throwing to Devontae Adams. He said, hey, you got to point your feet towards your target. And Liam Cohen made it a point that just because you point your feet towards the target doesn't mean that's where your eyes have to be, right? Most defensive players ain't looking down at the quarterback's feet. They're looking at his eyes, and Trevor can use his eyes to manipulate a situation. He also doesn't have to be a hero. He's got talent around him. Just trust that guys are going to be where they're supposed to be. Trust the line is going to give you enough time to do it. Trust that if you throw the ball to Tank Bigsby or whoever, they're going to catch it. Understand that the team is now to the point where you don't have to focus on one receiver like Brian Thomas Jr. Britton Strange has had a good camp and looks the part, right? And so all the rest of the tight ends that are big like tight ends are supposed to be. They can block and they can catch. Running backs, all of them have a little bit of a different skill set, but they all got giddy up. The wide receivers, particularly the first three, and Parker Washington played his butt off. He must have heard me talking about Joshua Cephas because now they have 5 legitimate wide receivers, in my opinion. You just got to trust the machine. You got to trust the coaches. You got to trust your offensive line. You got to know how long you can hold on to the ball and don't leave a clean pocket. We've seen Trevor in the past leave a clean pocket, but we aren't mad at Trevor for doing that because the pocket got dirty a whole bunch in the past, right? This is all about the process that I'm talking about. And I've never said trust the process in the past because I was afraid of what the process was. I didn't ever think that there was enough emphasis on. I think Doug tried to give Trevor the freedom that Andy Reid gave him and Donovan McNabb and what he witnessed with Patrick Mahomes and all of that stuff. That's fine. And the freedom that they had in Philadelphia when they won the Super Bowl that year, this team's a little bit different. And you got to understand that most of those quarterbacks that I mentioned are probably guys, too, that had the benefit of sitting and watching and learning. And Trevor didn't. Trevor came into a volatile situation with Urban Meyer as coach, probably didn't learn. Only thing I think Trevor learned his rookie year was what not to do and the kind of organization you didn't want to play for and the kind of coach that you didn't want to play for and how important it was to separate yourself from those things and ingratiate yourself with your teammates regardless of what you're going through. And I think those are valuable lessons, but you don't want to learn those lessons while you're losing. So then the next couple of years, you saw the talent. You saw them playing loose. You saw Doug Peterson win 19 games over 2 seasons, but then it just wasn't enough to sustain because Dewey Wingard hinted at it. There were things going on behind the scene and in the building that we had no knowledge of. And I just think that meant that everybody was being pulled every which way. I don't think Doug Peterson had control over his coaching staff the way he wanted. I don't think Doug Peterson wanted to fire the defensive coaches, but I think he had to. And I think Trent was pulling all of those strings and creating a situation where I'm not saying he was sabotaging the team. Trent was doing things the way he thought he he thought the way they needed to get done. The difference between Trent and say Howie Roseman, who could make those same calls like that, is, well, Trent ain't Howie Roseman because he wasn't a good drafter he was a good drafter of some talent, but he wasn't a good team builder in terms of getting complementary players. And he believed in his draft picks too much, especially along the offensive line. Well, now when you add competition, you create competition and you create trust by saying that whoever is here that ain't getting it done, we're going to get rid of you. If you're late, we're going to put somebody in there more dependable. If you don't do your job, I'm going to find somebody who can do it. I'm going to shake your hand and treat you with respect, but it's not, you ain't threatening nobody that they're going to be pumping gas. You ain't threatening nobody that they're going to lose all of their money. You're not holding it over their head. I remember one player told me, Trent told him, you're going to play your way out of the league pretty soon if you don't start eating better. The kid was a vegan, right? So he ate certain foods at certain times in a certain type of way. He never had a problem gaining weight, but he told me that Trent took it as him not being willing to do whatever it takes to make himself better for the team. Dude went and played somewhere else. He played all right. He's still around, but he went and played somewhere else. So sometimes it's like trying to force people to be a certain way, as opposed to having an organization and a coaching staff that gives guys a really, really nice canvas to start drawing. There's nothing like trying to draw on some oily, dirty paper. If you draw on something clean, man, you're going to get exactly what you put into it. And I believe that this is the way this franchise is going right now. And that's why you just got to trust the process. Liam Cohen is watching Trevor Lawrence. If you're at practice and you see it, there's correction after every play. Grant Yudinsky also is there. Grant is doing more teaching. Liam is doing the play calling and then the observation, and then he's correcting whoever needs to be corrected. Grant's kind of doing the same thing, but make no mistake about it. Liam Cohen is the play caller. This is his offense, and he is going to watch every single thing that Trevor does. There's one thing I'll give you today. Trevor made a throw in the back of the end zone, and Parker Washington caught the touchdown, and you saw Liam Cohen give him dap like that's what I'm talking about. They have these routes where guys are wide open in the flat, right? I think he wants them to throw the ball down the field. I have heard him actually say it once, and then I've seen it, how he's just responding and how he's acting to guys holding the ball a little bit longer. There is no rush to get the ball out of your hands now. That comes along with trust. That comes along with putting enough people out in the routes that people are afraid of, that they're not sending extra people. And then when they do send the extra people, you know where the hot guy is. It's all about the mental aspects and the brainiac aspects of this. And I told y'all that when they took over. I'm telling you, they gave the team to the football nerds. And I say that with affection. And those guys are coaching and teaching. This is going to be a smarter football team. Now we have to see where the results lead to, but I'm happy with it because this is exactly the way that I like teams to be coached, to be prepped, and to just to be ready to go out and get it done. Talking about getting it done, the Locked On NFL Top 100 is here, voted on by the NFL host of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our Top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every day. Find the full list on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Don't miss our reaction shows around the net. They are everywhere, all right? You even had me doing it, talking about the reaction shows, about where Travis Hunter, he's in the top 67. And everybody from around the network says, see, even the Jaguar guy says he shouldn't be there. I just don't put rookies in the top 100. But make sure you tap that out. You check that out wherever you get your podcast. All right, man, y'all have a nice weekend. Maybe an episode Sunday, or I may save it, may record it Sunday and put it out Monday. But I'll definitely be at training camp on Sunday, man. We'll see y'all next time here on the Locked On Jaguars podcast.